The morning sunlight spilled through the thin curtains of a modest home in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado, painting the kitchen with a warm golden hue. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound breaking the early silence as Sarah Matthews stood at the counter, her hands cradling a steaming cup of coffee. This was her moment of peace before the chaos of the day began. She loved these quiet mornings when the world was still, and the house felt like it belonged solely to her. At 36 years old, Sarah's life revolved around her family. Married to her high school sweetheart, Tom, for nearly a decade, she was the proud mother of two spirited children, Emily, 8, and Jacob, 6. Their days were a whirlwind of school runs, homework, extracurricular activities, and shared meals, leaving little time for herself. But she didn't mind. Sarah found joy in the little things. The way Jacob's laughter filled the house when he played with their golden retriever, Max, or the way Emily's eyes lit up when she talked about her butterfly collection. It was these fleeting moments that made the busyness worth it. This particular morning, Sarah had her usual routine mapped out in her head. After finishing her coffee, she'd wake the kids, prepare breakfast, and drive them to school. She worked part-time as a second-grade teacher, and although it was demanding, she adored the opportunity to shape young minds. Her job gave her a sense of purpose, even if it often left her feeling drained by the end of the day. "Mom, I can't find my sneakers." Jacob's voice broke through her thoughts, followed by the sound of little feet pounding on the hardwood floor. Emily appeared in the kitchen moments later, her hair in a messy ponytail and her face set in concentration as she scrolled through her tablet. It was another typical morning in the Matthews household, chaotic, noisy, and full of life. After dropping the kids off at their school, Sarah headed to the local grocery store to pick up a few things for dinner. She waved at Frank, the friendly cashier she saw almost every other day, and made her way down the familiar aisles. As she loaded her cart with fresh vegetables and a box of Jacob's favorite cereal, her phone buzzed with a text from her mom. "Sunday lunch at 1. Don't forget dessert." Sarah smiled. Sunday lunches at her parents' house were a family tradition. She already knew she'd bake her famous chocolate chip cookies, a recipe passed down from her grandmother. The rest of the day unfolded like clockwork. She taught her class of bright, energetic second graders, cheered Jacob on at his soccer practice, and helped Emily finish her science project on butterfly migration. Each moment felt like a piece of a larger puzzle, creating a picture of a life that, while not extraordinary, was deeply fulfilling. Sarah loved the predictability of her days, the steady rhythm that gave her a sense of control in an unpredictable world. That evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, the room was filled with laughter. Tom recounted a story about a mishap at work that had everyone in stitches, and Sarah found herself marveling at how lucky she was to have these moments. She glanced at her children, their faces glowing in the warm light of the chandelier, and felt a swell of gratitude so strong it brought tears to her eyes. Later, as she tucked Emily and Jacob into bed, she whispered her nightly prayer over them. It was a ritual she never missed, no matter how tired she was. "Dear Lord, thank you for another day with my family. Please keep my children safe, healthy, and happy. Guide them in your love and light." She kissed their foreheads and lingered for a moment, watching them drift off to sleep. That night, as she lay in bed beside Tom, Sarah felt a strange restlessness. The contentment she'd felt earlier was overshadowed by a quiet yearning, a sense that something was missing. It wasn't unhappiness, far from it. It was more like a subtle tug on her heart, a whisper she couldn't quite hear. She stared at the ceiling, her thoughts swirling like autumn leaves in the wind. She thought about the dreams she'd had when she was younger, the books she wanted to write, the places she wanted to visit, the lives she wanted to touch. Life had a way of reshaping dreams, turning them into smaller, more manageable versions of what they once were. But lately, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more waiting for her, something she was meant to do. Little did she know, that quiet yearning was the first ripple in a wave that would soon upend her world. In just a few days, her life would take a turn so profound that everything she thought she knew about herself, her faith, and the world around her would be forever changed. Before we continue Sarah's incredible story, take a moment to join our growing community. Your support means the world to us. If you haven't already, like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay connected. In this video, we'll be revealing which listener will receive a special message and heartfelt hug from us, a mystery that might just be you. Stay tuned until the end to find out if it's your name we'll mention. Want to be featured in our next video and get your moment? It's simple. Comment your name and city below, and let us know you're part of this incredible journey. We love celebrating our viewers and making you a part of our stories. Who knows? You could be the next person we highlight. The morning of March 14th started like any other. The sun peeked through a thin layer of clouds, casting a muted glow over the streets of Denver. Sarah Matthews didn't notice much as she hurried to get her children ready for school. The usual morning chaos ensued. Jacob couldn't find his math workbook. Emily was upset because her favorite headband was missing, and Max, their golden retriever, decided to knock over his water bowl in the middle of it all.
Mom.
Emily took my eraser. Jacob's voice rang out as Sarah struggled to juggle making breakfast and packing lunches. She sighed, already feeling the wear of the day before it had fully begun. Despite the noise and the rush, there was a rhythm to these moments, a familiarity that felt like a warm, comforting routine. By the time she dropped the kids off at school and got into her car to head to work, she let out a long exhale, savoring a few moments of silence. She flipped on the radio, but the cheerful pop song playing in the background did little to lift her spirits. There was that feeling again, a quiet yearning, a whisper at the edge of her mind, reminding her that something was missing. She shook it off, focusing instead on her lesson plan for the day. The school day passed uneventfully. Her second graders were their usual lively selves, eager to show her their artwork and ask questions about everything from dinosaurs to outer space. Yet, even in their bright smiles, Sarah felt herself drifting. She couldn't quite put her finger on why she felt this way. Her life was good, full of love, purpose, and stability. But beneath it all, there was an ache for something more. That evening, as Sarah drove home, she noticed the sky had turned an eerie shade of gray. The wind picked up, and the first few drops of rain splattered against her windshield. By the time she pulled into her driveway, the storm had arrived in full force, with thunder rumbling in the distance and lightning slicing through the clouds. Sarah hurried inside, shaking off the rain as she was greeted by Max, wagging his tail excitedly. Dinner was another routine affair, filled with laughter and shared stories. Tom talked about his day at work, Emily described a book she was reading, and Jacob proudly announced he had scored a goal in soccer practice. Sarah listened, her heart full but still carrying that subtle restlessness she couldn't shake. After dinner, she cleaned up the kitchen while the kids watched a movie in the living room. Thunder continued to roll outside, growing louder with each passing moment. As the rain lashed against the windows, Sarah felt a strange unease settle over her. It was as if the storm carried with it a warning, a sense that something significant was about to happen. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Sarah sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching the storm. The flashes of lightning illuminated the backyard, and the sound of rain filled the quiet house. She thought about her family, her students, and the life she had built. She felt immense gratitude, but also an unshakable sense that this wasn't all there was. Around midnight, as the storm began to subside, Sarah decided to head to bed. She kissed Tom, who had already fallen asleep, and climbed into bed herself. The room was dark, the only sound the soft patter of rain against the roof. She closed her eyes, hoping for the peace that sleep usually brought her. But then it happened. A sharp, searing pain shot through her chest, waking her instantly. It felt as though her heart was being squeezed in a vice. She gasped, clutching her chest, her breath coming in short, desperate bursts. Panic surged through her as she tried to call out to Tom, but the words wouldn't come. Her vision blurred, and the edges of the room seemed to darken. "Tom," she managed to whisper, but he didn't stir. The pain intensified, spreading through her body like wildfire. Sarah felt herself slipping, as if the world around her was fading into nothingness. Her mind raced with thoughts of her children, her husband, and the life she didn't want to leave behind. Tears streamed down her face as she silently prayed, "God, please don't let this be the end." And then, just as suddenly as the pain had begun, it stopped. Sarah's body relaxed, and she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The darkness that had closed in around her was replaced by a soft, golden light, warm and inviting. She could no longer feel the weight of her body or the fear that had gripped her moments ago. Instead, there was only calm, a stillness so profound it was almost tangible. The world she knew had vanished, and she found herself standing in a place that defied description. It wasn't a physical location, yet it felt more real than anything she had ever experienced. The air seemed to hum with a gentle, melodic energy, and the light that surrounded her was imbued with a sense of love so deep, it brought her to tears. This was no ordinary moment. Sarah knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that she had crossed a threshold. But where had she gone?
And why?
The light that enveloped Sarah was unlike anything she had ever seen. It wasn't just bright, it was alive, pulsing gently as though it had a heartbeat of its own. It radiated warmth, not the kind that scorched or burned, but one that wrapped her in a sense of safety and belonging. She couldn't tell where the light ended and where she began. It was as though she had become a part of it, or it a part of her. Her thoughts were no longer fragmented by fear or confusion. Instead, they flowed effortlessly, unburdened and clear. She felt weightless, free from the physical aches and distractions of the world she had known. It wasn't until she tried to move that she realized she no longer had a body in the way she understood it. Yet, she existed, more completely than ever before. "Where am I?" The question arose within her, though she hadn't spoken aloud. The moment the thought formed, the answer seemed to come, not in words but as a knowing, an understanding that went straight to her soul. She wasn't dreaming, and this wasn't a figment of her imagination. She had crossed over into a place far beyond the limits of earthly life. Ahead of her, the light began to shift, forming shapes and patterns that grew more distinct with each passing moment. At first, it was like watching a sunrise break over the horizon, the light giving way to color and form. Slowly, she became aware of a path beneath her, golden and shimmering, as though it had been woven from threads of light. The path seemed to invite her forward, and though she wasn't walking in the traditional sense, she felt herself moving effortlessly along it. As she did, a deep sense of peace and joy filled her being. It was a joy she couldn't compare to anything on earth, pure, untainted, and endless. In the distance, Sarah noticed figures beginning to take shape within the light. They were neither shadowy nor opaque, but glowing, radiant beings who seemed to emanate love. She couldn't discern their faces, but she felt no fear, only an overwhelming sense of familiarity and connection, as though she had known them forever. One of the figures stepped forward, their presence both gentle and powerful. Sarah felt their love wash over her like a wave, filling every part of her. Though they didn't speak aloud, she understood their message with perfect clarity. "You are safe," the figure conveyed, their voice resonating within her like music. "You are deeply loved." Tears filled Sarah's eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer beauty of what she was experiencing. Every worry, every fear, every moment of doubt she had ever carried melted away in that instant. She thought of her children, her husband, and her life back on Earth. But instead of feeling the pang of separation, she felt gratitude. Somehow, she knew they were being cared for and that all was as it should be. As she continued along the path, new sensations began to emerge. She became aware of music, though it wasn't music in the traditional sense. It was a symphony of harmonies that seemed to arise from the very fabric of the place. The sounds were both immense and intimate, filling the space around her and resonating deep within her soul. She was home. That was the only way she could describe it. Though she had never been to this place before, it felt more real, more right, than anything she had ever known. She realized, with a clarity that left her breathless, that this was what she had been yearning for all along. It wasn't a place in the physical world, but a state of being, a connection to something far greater than herself. As Sarah marveled at her surroundings, memories began to surface, not just from her own life, but from what felt like lifetimes. She saw moments of joy, love, and even pain, but they were all woven together into a tapestry of purpose. Every experience, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, had been part of a greater design. One memory stood out among the rest. She was a little girl, no more than 6 years old, standing in her grandmother's garden. The scent of lavender filled the air as her grandmother knelt beside her, planting seeds in the rich soil. "Remember, Sarah," her grandmother had said, "everything beautiful grows in its own time. Trust the process, even when you can't see the results." The memory faded, but the lesson remained, etched into her heart. For the first time, Sarah understood the profound truth of those words. Life wasn't about rushing to see the final picture, but about trusting the journey, even when the path was unclear. Her thoughts were interrupted as the light ahead grew brighter, almost blinding in its intensity. She instinctively stopped, sensing that she was on the threshold of something even more extraordinary. The figures she had seen earlier now stood behind her, their presence reassuring as if they were preparing her for what lay ahead. Sarah's heart, or whatever part of her now held her essence, swelled with anticipation. She knew she was about to encounter something far beyond her comprehension, something that would change everything she thought she knew about existence, faith, and love. And then, the light began to shift again, revealing something so magnificent that it left her in awe. The brilliance ahead of Sarah intensified, enveloping her in an ethereal glow that seemed to pulse with life. Her breath, or whatever remained of it, caught as the light began to part like a veil, revealing a vision so magnificent it brought her to her knees. Before her stood a presence unlike anything she could have imagined. It wasn't just a figure, but an embodiment of love, light, and power that filled the entire space with its radiance. This presence didn't speak in words, yet every part of Sarah's being resonated with its message. It was as though her soul was being gently unraveled and examined, but not in judgment. Instead, it was with a kindness so profound that it made her weep. Every doubt, every fear, every regret she had ever carried melted away in the warmth of its love. She felt completely seen, her triumphs, her failures, her humanity, and yet she was loved beyond measure. "Sarah," the presence seemed to say, though no words were spoken. The sound of her name echoed within her like a song, tender and beautiful. "You have always been known." The vision shifted, and Sarah saw her life played out before her, not as a series of isolated moments, but as an interconnected tapestry. She saw the joy she had given to others, the kindness she had shared, and even the times she had faltered. But instead of judgment, she felt a profound sense of purpose. Every moment, even the smallest acts of love, had rippled outward, touching lives in ways she had never realized. "Why me?" she thought, humbled by the enormity of what she was experiencing. "Why am I here?" The answer came not as an explanation but as a gentle truth, settling over her like a soft breeze. She was here to understand, to glimpse the eternal, and to carry that understanding back into the world she had come from. Her life, as ordinary as it might have seemed, was deeply significant, a part of a much greater design. As the vision unfolded, Sarah saw glimpses of others who had been here before her. They, too, had walked this path, experienced this love, and returned to share it with the world. She felt a deep connection to them, as though their journeys and hers were intertwined. The presence conveyed a sense of urgency, not rushed, but purposeful. Her time here was limited, and there was much for her to learn before she returned. The light surrounding her began to shimmer, transforming into a scene so vivid it felt like stepping into a living painting. She saw a garden, lush and vibrant, teeming with flowers of every color and birds that sang a melody unlike anything she had heard before. In the center of the garden stood a tree, its branches stretching high into the heavens. It wasn't just a tree, it was the tree of life, pulsating with energy and radiating wisdom. As Sarah approached the tree, she felt an overwhelming sense of awe. The closer she got, the more she understood that this wasn't just a vision. It was a gift, a revelation meant to guide her in the life she would soon return to. The presence beside her seemed to nod, affirming what she was beginning to comprehend. She was being shown these things for a reason, and that reason would become clear in time. Just as she reached out to touch the tree, the scene began to fade. The garden dissolved into light, and Sarah found herself standing once again in the presence of the radiant being. She didn't want to leave, not yet. There was so much more she longed to see, to understand. But she knew, deep in her soul, that this was not her time to stay. Carry this love with you, the presence conveyed, its message echoing in every corner of her being. The world needs it. And with that, the light began to dim, and Sarah felt herself being pulled gently away, back toward the world she had left behind. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Before we continue with Sarah's story, we want to invite you to become part of our community. Like this video and leave a comment below with your name and the city you're watching from. We'll be sharing special shoutouts in our next video, and today, someone special is receiving a heartfelt message and virtual hug from us. Stay tuned until the end to see if it's you. As Sarah's consciousness began to shift, the light surrounding her grew softer, dimming into a gentle glow that still carried the warmth and love she had experienced moments before. She felt herself being drawn back toward the life she had left behind, but the pull wasn't harsh or abrupt. It was as though unseen hands were cradling her, guiding her gently as she descended from the divine presence that had enveloped her. Before her, the radiant figure appeared again, emanating a peaceful assurance. Though Sarah longed to stay, she understood that her time in this realm was temporary. A profound sense of purpose welled up within her, as if the truths she had glimpsed were being etched into her very soul. Your journey is not complete, the presence conveyed, its message reverberating within her. You must return and carry what you have learned to those who need it. What am I meant to do? Sarah thought, her heart heavy with both gratitude and uncertainty. The answer came in waves, not as a list of tasks, but as a series of understandings that settled into her spirit. She saw visions of herself standing before others, her words infused with the love and wisdom she had been shown. She saw herself comforting those in pain, guiding those lost in darkness, and reminding people of the eternal connection they shared with the divine. It wasn't about grand gestures or sweeping changes. It was about small, intentional acts of love and kindness that carried the power to ripple outward. You are a light, the presence said, its voice like a melody that lingered long after the words had faded. Let that light shine in every corner you touch. Sarah's vision shifted once more, and she saw the faces of those she loved, Tom, Emily, Jacob, clear and vivid as if they were standing right before her. She felt their love and their need for her, and she understood that her family was an essential part of her mission. It wasn't just about what she could do for the world, but about what she could teach and share with those closest to her. Her family was her first ministry, her foundation for the work she was being called to do. As the vision faded, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She knew her life had meaning far beyond what she had ever realized, and though the path ahead was uncertain, she trusted that she would be guided every step of the way. The presence radiated a final wave of love, enveloping her as if to say, "You are never alone." Then, with a sudden yet gentle pull, Sarah felt herself falling, not in fear, but in trust. The warmth of the light gave way to the coolness of reality, and the next thing she knew, she was gasping for air, her chest rising and falling as though she had been underwater for far too long. She was back. The room was dark, the soft hum of the rain still audible outside. She could hear Tom's steady breathing beside her, and she realized she was lying in their bed. Her hands trembled as she touched her chest, half expecting to feel the pain that had overtaken her before. But it was gone, replaced by a lingering warmth that she couldn't explain. The experience she had just undergone was too vivid, too extraordinary to dismiss as a dream. Every detail, every word, every sensation was imprinted on her soul. She sat up slowly, her mind racing with thoughts of what she had seen and the mission she had been given. Sarah turned to look at Tom, his face peaceful in sleep. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thought of her children sleeping just down the hall. She had been given a second chance, not just at life, but at living with intention, purpose, and love. As she sat in the stillness of the room, Sarah whispered a prayer. It wasn't the simple, routine prayer she had recited before. It was raw, heartfelt, and full of gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling. "Thank you for bringing me back. Help me to live the way you want me to." Though she didn't know exactly how she would fulfill the mission she had been given, she knew where to start. Her family, her community, and the people she encountered every day, these were the lives she was meant to touch, the hearts she was meant to reach. And she would do it, not because she felt obligated, but because she had been transformed by the love she had experienced. Sarah lay back down, her heart still racing but her spirit calm. She closed her eyes, knowing that when morning came, her journey would truly begin. The dawn broke gently over Denver, casting soft hues of pink and gold across the city. Sarah woke earlier than usual, her heart still heavy with the weight and wonder of what she had experienced. The faint sounds of birds chirping outside her window seemed sharper, more vivid, as if the world itself was calling her to attention. She sat up slowly, her body feeling unfamiliar yet profoundly alive. For a moment, she wondered if it had all been a dream, some fabrication of her mind. But as she placed her hand over her heart, she felt the truth pulsating within her. The love, the peace, and the mission she had received were as real as the sun rising outside. Quietly, she slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Tom, and made her way downstairs. The house was still, save for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Sarah settled herself at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea, and stared out the window. The light streaming in seemed different, brighter, more alive. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was seeing everything anew. As she sat in the stillness, the memories of her experience flooded back with vivid clarity. The light, the presence, the love that had enveloped her. It all felt as fresh as if she were still there. But what stayed with her most was the mission, the call to carry what she had learned back into the world. "How do I even begin?" she thought, her mind racing with possibilities. She wasn't a public speaker or a writer, nor did she hold any significant position of influence. She was just Sarah Matthews, wife, mother, teacher. What difference could she possibly make? Yet, as soon as the doubt crept in, she felt a gentle nudge in her spirit. It wasn't about grand gestures or sweeping changes. It was about being a light in the everyday moments, showing kindness, offering encouragement, and living with intention. Her family, her friends, her students, these were the people she was meant to impact, one small act of love at a time. That morning, as Sarah prepared breakfast for her family, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She greeted her children with extra warmth, taking time to really listen to their excited chatter about the day ahead. She kissed Tom on the cheek, her heart swelling with gratitude for the life they had built together. Every interaction felt like an opportunity to plant seeds of love, just as her grandmother had taught her so many years ago. At school, Sarah approached her work with a new perspective. She saw her students not just as children to be taught, but as lives to be nurtured. She offered extra encouragement to a struggling student, took a moment to compliment another on their creativity, and made a point to connect with the parents she encountered. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Sarah knew she was beginning to fulfill her mission in the way she was meant to. That evening, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Sarah found herself drawn to her journal. She hadn't written in years, but now the words seemed to pour out of her effortlessly. She wrote about her experience, the light, and the love she had encountered. She wrote about her mission and the deep sense of peace she felt despite the uncertainty of how it would unfold. As she closed the journal, she whispered a prayer. "Help me to stay faithful," she said, her voice soft but resolute. "Show me how to love the way you do." For the first time in years, Sarah felt truly awake, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. The ache that had lingered in her heart for so long was gone, replaced by a deep sense of purpose. She didn't have all the answers, but she knew she didn't need them. The path would reveal itself one step at a time. Thank you for being part of this journey with Sarah. We're building a community of people who believe in hope, love, and the power of sharing stories that inspire. We don't earn money making these videos. We do it because we're passionate about bringing light into the world. If you'd like to support us, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your encouragement means so much, and it helps us reach others who might need these messages too. Join our community today and share in this mission of spreading love and hope. The days and weeks that followed Sarah's return to life were nothing short of transformative. She began to see the world through a lens she had never used before, a lens of love, purpose, and unwavering faith. The ordinary routines of her life, once taken for granted, now felt like sacred opportunities to live out her mission. Every conversation, every small act of kindness, every quiet prayer became a way to share the light she had been given. Her family was the first to notice the change. Tom, who had always admired Sarah's strength, now saw a quiet, radiant joy in her that seemed unshakable. Emily and Jacob, though young, felt the difference in how their mother engaged with them, fully present, patient, and deeply attentive. Even Max, their golden retriever, seemed to bask in her calm energy. At work, Sarah's colleagues and students began to remark on her renewed spirit. She became a source of encouragement for those who were struggling, a steady presence in times of chaos, and a beacon of hope for anyone who needed it. She didn't preach or push her beliefs. She simply lived them, letting her actions speak louder than words. One evening, as she sat with her family around the dinner table, laughter filled the room. They were recounting their day, sharing stories and jokes, when Sarah felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her. This was her purpose, to love, to nurture, and to shine her light in the world, starting right here with the people she cherished most. After dinner, as the kids headed upstairs, Sarah lingered at the table with Tom. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice soft but steady, "about everything that happened and what I'm supposed to do now." Tom reached for her hand, his eyes searching hers. "Whatever it is," he said, "we'll do it together." Her heart swelled with love and gratitude. She knew the path ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she also knew she wasn't walking it alone. That night, as she prepared for bed, Sarah opened her journal to write. The words came easily, flowing from a place deep within her soul. She wrote about her experience, the light, the love, and the mission she had been given. And as she closed the journal, she whispered a prayer of thanks. Her journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. Before we conclude, we want to take a moment to send a heartfelt message to two incredible viewers who have been part of this journey with us. To Maureen from Sunshine Coast, Queensland, Australia, your presence in this community is a blessing. May your days be filled with peace, love, and the joy of knowing how much you are cherished. Let the light within you shine brightly, touching everyone around you. To Marcy from Detroit, your kindness and strength inspire us. May your path be filled with hope and purpose, and may you always feel the love that surrounds you. You are a light in this world, and we're so grateful to have you with us. If you want to receive a special message in one of our future videos, don't forget to comment your name and the city you're watching from. We'd love to celebrate you too. Thank you for being part of this incredible story. If you feel inspired, give this video a like and comment amen below so we can continue to spread blessings together. And don't stop here. Click the video appearing on your screen now for a revelation that could transform your life. We promise it will be worth it. Join our community by subscribing to our channel, and let's continue to share stories that inspire, uplift, and bring light into the world. See you in the next video.